Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us for the past 4 weeks of #relationship goals. For the past month, we've keyed in on different types of relationships, including how to better parent our children and how to be a good friend. This past week, my husband Jeff and I discussed needs versus wants in a marriage. We talked about how we can better understand our spouse so that we don't just survive in marriage, but we actually thrive in marriage. There are so many wants in life, but what do we actually need? Okay guys, I'm talking to you specifically. Women need security, affection, and communication. And now ladies, men need to feel respected, they need support, and sex. What happens in marriage when we don't meet one another's needs? Men turn to their workplace to get honor and respect. Women look for affection from their kids and seek communication from their girlfriends and their family. We have to understand that Satan's strategy is to do everything he can to encourage infidelity outside of marriage. We can't let that happen. Did you know that the national length of marriage in the US is 8.2 years? And globally, the divorce rate has more than doubled in the past 4 decades? We as the church have to do something to change that. When people look at our relationships, they should see God's love for us through the way that we treat one another and the way that we act. I know what you're thinking. Ashley, have you seen the way that he acts when he gets home from a long day? Or do you know the attitude she gives me when I ask her to do something? I know. No one is perfect, but every day is a new day. Daily, we have to die to ourselves and allow God to control our actions. Talking about relationships in general, it's so easy to just take all the time. But the difference between you and the people that you know is your relationship with God. He is the perfect example of what it means to give. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son for you and for me. What an amazing gift we have been given. You will never see real love until there is a sacrifice of giving. So how do we do this? Giving simply means dying to ourselves every day and being intentional about being selfless in our relationships. Point blank, this means we have to stop being selfish and only thinking about what we need to bring us happiness. This holds true in not just marriage, but in all relationships and friendships as well. When I think of being selfish, I think of my kids. They are the perfect example of this. From the day they were born, they don't understand what it means to put others before themselves until they're actually taught to do so. This reminds me of my 4-year-old daughter, Kennedy. Yesterday, she came into my room at 6 a.m. asking me to make her breakfast. 6 a.m. Now, if you know me, you know that I am not a morning person. So until my alarm goes off, do not come in and try to wake me up demanding things from me. Do you think it mattered to her that I was in a deep sleep? No. That girl wanted to eat and she will interrupt me and wake me up, raising her voice and throwing a tantrum until she gets what she wants. Typical child, only caring about her needs. 1 Corinthians 13:11 says, "When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man or woman, I put away childish things." It's time to grow up and start learning to give and invest in our relationships instead of always wanting to take. Yes, I know you're not 4 years old anymore and demanding breakfast from your mommy at 6 a.m., but maybe you're an adult and you have a hard time putting other people's needs before your own. Maybe you're completely set in your ways and you don't like moving out of your comfort zone for someone else. Sometimes we have to make sacrifices for what really matters to us. The best example of this was the ultimate sacrifice, Jesus. Do you remember the story of when Jesus went to pray on the Mount of Olives in Luke 22 before he was crucified? He prayed to God and said, "This is not my will, but it's yours to be done." He knew he was about to die on that cross, and he surrendered his own will. The angel of the Lord brought him strength so that you and I can become the righteousness of God. Wow, what an amazing example he set before us. True selflessness. If we could just learn to be more selfless in our day-to-day life, our relationships would really start to flourish. Isn't that what we want anyways? Healthy relationships that can withstand any storm. Before you can learn how to stop being selfish, you must see the behavior within yourself. Many people aren't able to change things about themselves simply because they refuse to accept their own faults. So how do we change and become more giving and less focused on ourselves? Well, the first way is learn to compromise. One way to eliminate selfish behavior is to learn more about what it means to compromise. All relationships require a bit of compromise from time to time. This is because each of us has needs and desires which are equally important, and we must learn to meet in the middle with decisions. Compromise is a mutual decision, and it makes everyone happier in the end. One great way to learn to compromise is in something so simple like, have you ever had a discussion with someone and trying to figure out what to eat for dinner? Oh my gosh, should we have tacos or burgers or pizza? This is the start of true compromise. Usually you go back and forth, no one can make a decision because all along you really feel like Chick-fil-A and the other person wants Mexican food. So eventually, when it comes down to it, who's gonna get their way? Well, will you go along with what they want or say, forget them, oh, I'm holding out for Chick-fil-A? I know that's so silly, such a silly example, but compromising is not a sign of weakness. It's simply saying, I understand what you're saying, let's get together and figure this out and go somewhere that makes us both happy. Number 2, put yourself in their shoes. Imagine you're the other person in the situation. How do you think they feel? What do you think they want? Leaving selfishness behind means caring about the needs of someone else. Learning empathy is something that we can actually learn. You know, it'll take time, but after you practice over time, you can figure it out. I know I've really been trying to grow in this area with my husband, Jeff, but he works really, really hard to help the family and provide for us. He's in sales. And as some of you may know, a sales job can be great, but it can also be really stressful at times. He carries a lot of the financial burden for our family from the day-to-day, and I'm sure his days are long and stressful. I'm sure the last thing he wants to do is hear complaining and negativity from me when he gets home. This could be as simple as me learning to be a better listener and putting myself in his shoes from time to time. We have to learn to take conversations a bit deeper than just chatting about the weather. It's really trying to understand the world inside the head of another person. You can't just assume that you know what's going on in people's lives or what they're thinking. You have to take time to ask questions and be there for them. This could be at home, this could be at your workplace, or at school. I saw this meme recently that said, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about, so be kind always. This is a great word for us to live by in all of our relationships. Let's strive to empathize, to put ourselves in other people's shoes. The barista at Starbucks, for instance, or the person at the light that's next to us, in our spouse's shoes or on our boyfriend or girlfriend's shoes. In every relationship, we will improve if both people decide to give rather than take. Okay, let's dive into some discussion questions. Question number 1. If giving is the key to having healthy relationships, why do you think we are more inclined to take instead of give? Question number 2. Are you naturally a compromiser or an insister? How does that help hurt your relationships? Question number 3. What is one thing you can compromise on this week that you normally insist on your own way? Question number 4. When it comes to your relationships, what are some ways you can be less selfish and focus more on what others need? Question number 5. Share a time when you intentionally put someone else's needs before your own. Thank you so much for joining us for our hashtag relationship series. We hope that you have gotten something from this and that you will grow in your relationships. We look forward to seeing you on Sunday.